So then I get the head off, and it is just carnage.
Hi.
Hello. We are going for a drive on a Sunday, going to do some Christmas shopping.
Yeah, kind of running some errands, kind of getting out of the house. I'm getting old and kind of hurt my neck shoveling yesterday, so I've been in bed with a heating pad, and this morning I was like, I'm okay, let's go, but my neck still hurts and I can't really turn my head all the way this way. But anyway, I wanted to get a Christmassy coffee, so we went to Dunkin', and my Dunkin' hack is to get their iced dark roast with 1 cream and 2 pumps of whatever flavor you want, and I'm pretty sure it's under like 150 calories, and it's not super sugary, so it's a little bit less horrible for you than the full dessert in a cup that you get if you order like whatever flavored holiday latte. And Adam was boring and got just a black coffee.
Medium black coffee.
That's okay. I am a little outraged with Starbucks because I went the other day and got an iced soy chestnut praline latte, and it cost $6. Like, I walked out of there and felt like they slapped me, and it wasn't even like that good. So this together, like 2 coffees was $5. Like, Dunkin' is for cheap people like myself. The chestnut praline flavor at Starbucks is really good, but like, I can't. That's so expensive. Like over $6 for a single coffee. Sticker shock. But anyway, so yeah, we're cruising, and we wanted to give a little update on our major project right now, which is the STI. Someday maybe that won't be the major project.
Yeah, that's the entire goal, so we'll see.
And then we're going to start screwing around with the Outback, and then we're going to break that, and no, I'm being dramatic. It's okay. Okay, so you pulled the engine, and what'd you find?
I did. And then I pulled one of the heads off, and I knew it was going to be bad, because obviously the spark
Sorry, I'm
plug...
laughing. It's not funny. It's not funny at all.
I knew it was going to be bad because the spark plug was basically broken in half, essentially.
Yeah.
So I pulled the head off. So, well, first off, I had to gather all of my organizational materials. So one of the things I try to do when I'm doing a major project like this is keep myself organized. Obviously, there's thousands of bolts and nuts and fittings and whatever. So I have just purchased multiple big bins, everything from like a shoebox size bin
Like
to,
the plastic storage totes.
right, yeah, that you can buy at Walmart or any store.
Yeah, we have a collection.
We do. So I think I had a total of maybe 14 of them from the last rebuild, again from the shoebox size to like the huge, I don't know what that is, 50-gallon or whatever.
Yeah, I have
large.
no idea. The kind you put your Christmas decorations in, or your engine parts, because we multi-purpose things.
Exactly.
But I will say, Adam's organization is admirable. As someone who tries to be organized but kind of fails a lot, that's something I very much admire in him, is like, he does not screw around with these projects. He's got things labeled, he's got Ziploc bags, he's got containers, he's got everything. Like, it's honestly very, very impressive, and a stark contrast to me, who loses my keys within 3 seconds of walking in the front door. Anyway, you got your containers.
So the day that I wanted to take it apart, it was like a blizzard, of course. So the containers are all in our barn, which is a couple hundred feet behind the house. So I go suit up, go out, get all these bins, bring them into the house.
And they're in the back of the spare parts pickup truck that's in
They are, yes.
the garage. Just redneck things.
So I got those all in the house, and I started taking things apart. And again, I'm taking my time. I'm labeling things. I have a roll of masking tape and a Sharpie and a box of plastic bags. I actually still have the plastic bags from the last time that are still labeled. Some of them have been wiped clean.
You should like sell this. You should sell like take your engine apart organization kits.
The problem is it would only be Subaru. It would be too much of a niche market. But
no, because they break all the time. There's other people doing this.
There are. it's unfortunate that I'm that good at being able to take these apart. So anyway, get everything labeled. Like I label all my vacuum hoses and everything. So I got my intake manifold off. I have one big long pin that I measured just to put the intake manifold in, so I don't have to take off all the fuel lines and take the injectors out and everything. So that's just one chunk. And I took off the oil pan, and at this point I'm like rotating this thing back and forth on an engine stand, so I'm hearing things rattle around in the oil pan, so I know the outcome's not going to be good. I get the oil pan off, and
Just for the uninitiated, that's really bad to have things rattling around in there. I can tell you that.
very true. So I'm like pulling things out with a magnet, and I have a little bucket that I'm starting to save pieces out. I see a quarter of a round thing and mostly just small smushed together pieces of aluminum that I can't actually tell what the parts they are. So then I get the head off, and it is just carnage. So there's a giant hole in the center of the piston. These are my brand new Manly forged pistons that I just put in. So one is completely destroyed. The head is completely destroyed. One of the valves is missing, and the other three valves just have pits in them from the other exploded aluminum pieces being churned up in the cylinder. So things are not good at this point.
Right.
It's going to require a full rebuild, both the bottom end and the top end. When I got the head off, I took the
That house is for sale. It's beautiful. I'm sorry.
So
So
I got
sad.
there's a lot of houses for
Okay,
sale.
I'm so sorry. Continue your story.
So I pulled up one of the lifter buckets, which on a Subaru is on top of the valve spring, and it's what the cam lobe presses down on to open up the valve. And the valve spring was broken in half, which I don't know how that happened. So basically my theory is the engine, it dropped a valve is what they call it. So one of the valves came out of the head assembly, and the piston struck the valve, breaking the piston and the valve, and therefore breaking a bunch of other things in the process. So when I took the head apart, I saw the valve spring was broken. Now, this is something that could either be the cause of, or it could be a result of whatever the
Yeah, like
carnage
chicken
was.
or the egg is kind of the
Exactly.
problem right now.
So I don't know that I'll ever be able to determine the exact pinpoint of what caused this failure. I emailed my tuner. He said usually a dropped valve is some sort of head assembly issue. I assembled my own head, so he basically said that I assembled the heads wrong.
He said talk to your head shop.
Yeah, he said talk
Adam's
to
like,
your shop.
I'm the head shop,
That's
so...
So I'm an amateur. I mean, I've done this for a long time, and I've assembled heads before, and I know the basic principle behind it, and I did all my valve lash
Well, what kind of nonsense
adjustments.
is going on
Is
here?
it just a car passing other cars?
Yeah, but he needs to do it quickly.
Yeah, much more quickly. So I thought I had all my measurements correctly. Other than valve springs, the valve train was completely stock factory. So I haven't really made any adjustments there other than the valve springs, and the bucket lash was always in spec. So I don't know if there was anything that could have caused that. Some other ideas might be that the valve got stuck open and then the piston hit it. So Subarus are an interference engine, meaning the valves and the pistons will take up the same space at the same time if they're not timed correctly. And the timing belt is what determines how all of the valves are moving in correlation to the piston. So my initial thought was the timing belt broke, but it was only that one cylinder that was affected, so I don't actually think it was
Well,
the
and
timing
also
belt.
you drove it so much before. I mean, I would think if something was going to go horribly wrong with your timing belt, like if you installed it incorrectly or something, it
Right.
would have happened
Right
before
away,
the 300
yeah.
miles you got on the car.
Exactly. So my best guess is either the valve got stuck open causing the piston to hit the valve on its way back up, or the valve came loose from the assembly in the head. Either the valve spring broke, which lowered the valve in the valve guide to the point where the piston hit it, or the retaining clips or the valve retainer came loose.
Do you want to talk about your drama with Manly?
There's not really drama with Manly. So the Manly valve springs, when I ordered the valve spring set and started to install them, there was 4 of the valve retainers were the wrong size, so they sat at a different height on the head when I was installing it. So I emailed them. They emailed back right away. I think they emailed back 7:30 a.m. the day after I emailed them back and said, looks like the wrong part was in the box. We'll send you the right one. I did all the measurements and found that only 4 of the 16 were the incorrect size. So they overnighted me 4 new retainers, and that was the issue. So the rest of them installed so that they were all installed on the same height on the valve.
Yeah, I guess I'm just suspicious that they sent you the wrong thing at first. It was kind of an open package or something.
Yeah, the
and then
package
they sent
was
you new
open.
ones that were like separate. Like I don't know. I'm just looking to blame someone else, and I mean, like, if we could pin it on Manly and be like, hey, you owe us a new engine and, you know, money for emotional damages, I'd like to do that. That might be a little unwarranted, but you can't blame a girl for trying.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, again, being an amateur doing this in my basement, there's not going to be any sort of warranty coverage for any sort of performance part, but I guess. I thought
still
about
try to blame Manly.
thought about emailing them just to say, what do you think? Is there any possibility of the valve spring being the cause of the failure? Is there any way to tell if it was my installation that caused the failure? I wouldn't know that, but a more experienced engine builder might, so not sure.
Well, what's next?
So I have some options. I could put in a built long block from a company for $8,000, which would be an all-new bottom end and all-new top end. And that would be built, so forged pistons, upgraded valve train, the works. I don't really need that. I don't need a built engine realistically, because I'm only planning on using close to stock boost, stock turbo, stock exhaust.
It's tempting.
It is tempting, because then I could easily turn up the boost later, buy a big turbo, buy huge injectors, and go nuts and be safe. But it's just a lot of money to be spending on a car that I have already spent a lot of money on, and have always had a plan of driving it as a stock or very close to stock vehicle.
Yeah, we've talked about making a video about kind of the background of the STI, but basically the thing had been molested. He bought it, and the whole point from the beginning was to put it back to stock. We don't have to get into that now, but we've never had the goal for it to be a race car. Basically, we've always just wanted a cool daily. It's a car we liked, and we kind of wanted to bring it back to life, sort of, right? It's sad to see a car you love kind of trashed by another owner.
Exactly.
So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but just kind of some of the motivation behind it, right? As you're making these decisions for anything, it's like, what's the goal, right? What are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So I can assemble another engine myself. I can do what I did the first time, where I bought a stock engine assembly from Subaru, and then I would have to buy new heads. I would have to buy any of the valve train components that broke and assemble them all and put them together. Now, because of what my tuner said, where it could have been the head assembly that was the cause of the issue, now I'm more hesitant to do that. So he suggested an engine shop, IAG. I emailed them to see. He suggested that they might be able to take a stock bottom end and put some sort of head package on it and sell it to me as a long block. So that is my inquiry to them, if that's something that they can do. My tuner suggested a factory 2019 short block as the basis of the engine build. There's been some upgrades. I think it's the same thing as the RA short block that came out in, I don't remember if it was 2017 or 2018, but it was an STI STI that had like 15 more horsepower and a few other tweaks, but they discovered some things about that engine and trickled that down to the other STI models in 2019. I know the spark plugs that I used on this engine were carried over from 18 to 19.
There's 15 years worth of R&D between the stock.
Everyone
engine.
likes to say that they haven't changed the engine at all, which the basis of it, yes, is exactly the same. But they have made minor tweaks over the years that are beneficial.
Right, yeah, I mean, I guess that is something people say, but it's not. It's not quite true. Like, whatever.
So basically my options are buy a built long block from a company like IAG, which will be expensive, but it'll be more of a guarantee that it's going to be safer than any setup that I've cobbled together in my basement and garage. I could buy a built engine from them if I want to turn up the boost later. I could build the engine myself again in my basement using those parts. Maybe I'll get some more friends involved to help me just ensure that all of the tolerances are correct. Or I could not do anything right away and sit on it and save up my money and then decide what to do later.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I have to hear back from IAG to see the cost of what it's going to be, even if I want to do like close to a production setup. Even if they assemble heads that are all stock components, it's still going to be expensive, but I don't really know what they would ballpark that, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, the uninitiated might watch this and be like, what are you doing? Like, just scrap it, right? Ditch the car, what? Right? It's his hobby. He's passionate about it. I love the passion, right? I think that it's a cool project. Yeah, it's expensive. I mean, we've got the cash for it. It's not like, we're going to go broke building engines.
Right.
Again, I say we, I'm not doing anything. I'm just the, support behind this going, sure, sweetie, whatever you want to do. You buy that long block.
Right. At this point, it's just how much into my savings do I want to dip, and I obviously, because this is just a project car, don't want to dip too far into my savings because it's my savings, so. But
it is your, primary hobby. People spend money on what other people classify as dumb stuff all the time.
Right.
So this is your passion, and this is what you're spending the money on. So it's kind of sticker shock, and we've also talked about doing a video about how much this stuff costs, right?
I haven't added it up, and I'm really scared too because I know it's a lot. I have a ballpark figure in my mind of where I'm at right now, and it's less than the STI was when it was new, so I'm good there. However, that could be inaccurate. We'll see, but we may do a video on that later on.
Right.
Realistically, if I do it again this time and I'm going with a fully, an engine built by a reputable company, and I have my tuner who's also helping me make decisions on the parts that I buy and things like that, I don't see much else going wrong. I mean, there's always that factor, that unknown factor that could cause some sort of issue. However, I've been working on this car for so long and put a lot of money and effort into it recently, and to just stop and not do anything, or scrap the car or do something drastic like that, that just would be so disappointing to me. And it kind of feels like I'm on a treasure hunt for the perfect daily driver STI or however you want to say that, and I'm always this close to pulling it off, and then something goes wrong.
And yes, we could just go buy a new STI. We know that. That's our backup plan. My next daily will probably be a new STI once the Outback either explodes or I'm over it. We know, but this is the car that we love, and honestly, you're so lucky that I'm just okay with all of this.
That is very true.
But I am, right? Like I said, it's your major passion. You spend so many hours, and it's more of a project from the heart, not the practical side, right? It's an emotional thing. We've also, as we've been talking, I realized we've been watching a lot of The Curse of Oak Island, and I feel like there's just some parallels here. It's like the treasure hunt. When you were talking about fishing little bits of metal out of the oil pan, I pictured the guy with the metal detector on Oak Island. And like they just everything that goes wrong, they just blame it on the curse of Oak Island. You could just be like the curse of the STI.
That is very true. I did say in my email to IAG that I believe the car is cursed, and the man who emailed me back said, let's break the curse. So hopefully we can break the curse of the STI.
He was just trying to sell him an engine, though. I was hoping there might be like an exorcism process, which I'd be really into seeing what that entails. I think there's like a spirit of like the 16-year-old kid who owned it once upon a time trapped inside the car. So it's just some serious, douchey vibes in there. But hopefully that's it and it's not an actual
I hope so too. So at this point the plan is to continue to move forward unless it becomes way too expensive. I may do it in bits and pieces, but hopefully it won't take me too long to get everything back together. And the STI will be back on the road, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll keep making updates.
Yeah, definitely continue documenting the process regardless of what happens.
And maybe we'll make a video outlining the financials of the project, unless, of course, we add up the numbers and we both have a stroke and have to just quit entirely.
That is a very large possibility.
All right. Well,
I think that's it for now.
That's our update.
We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.